Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Tom's Hardware Podcast for September 13th, 2022. We've been off for a couple weeks and now we're on at a new time. So I hope folks are catching up catching up with us at this new time, which we just moved back a half an hour from when we used to normally do it at 2:30 Eastern, 7:30 UK time. And now we're just moving it back a half hour to be on the hour uh, from now on. But we've been off for a couple weeks due to holidays and things like that. But we're so excited to be back and with a very special guest, someone we really admire who does amazing work, Allie Katz of Katz Creates, back with their new BMO Octoprint computer.
BMOctoprint, which is a definitely a bit of a tongue twister. There's definitely a lot of bloopers from me filming the video, just absolutely chewing on that portmanteau. But clearly, BMOctoprint is the real special guest today, and I think very excited to be here. Admittedly, I am very curious if the sound will actually be caught by my mic.
Welcome, friend. I've been expecting you because of my proximity radar.
Could y'all actually hear that?
Yeah.
That
came through really
Yeah,
clear.
proximity radar.
Yeah. I actually cannot express just how much joy this project has brought me. Like, regardless of anyone else, like regardless of everything else, BMO brings me joy just by existing. So I think like it has been one of those things that's just like, yeah, actually, this was worth it. This is totally worth it because it's just so joyful. She's so joyful.
So what does she do?
So I was say, part of the reason why I'm sat over here today and not at my my usual spot is because BMOctoprint's like main thing, the whole reason why I made this in the first place, is because BMOctoprint is an Octoprint server, hence the 3D printer, which is turned off at the moment only because the fan is a little loud, but I am fully prepared to turn it on for a demonstration if so desired. But the three buttons here are actually all Octoprint 3D printing driving buttons. So as much as I love BMO's face, this is a touch screen, by the way, so we can just wake it up just by giving it a tap. And the Octoprint GUI, I don't know how well you could actually see. Unfortunately, it does look like not very well at all. If I actually turn down, you might be able to see. Make it a little bit dark. Make it so that you can actually see the screen a little bit. So it's actually got the Octoprint GUI on here. And again, being a touch screen, you can just totally control everything from here. All right, I'm gonna bring myself back because it's very dark. Very dark. But if I actually switch this on, this is my it likes to sing. My my Creality CR10S Pro V2, which I have modded heavily, which I realize I don't actually. Yeah, you can see the sticker here. I've modded it with a E3D Chimera and Volcano hot end, which makes it just so nice, so chef's kiss this printer because it's got a huge print bed, and now it chucks out filament at 3 times the volumetric rate, which is very nice. So obviously, printer is now on, but BMO is not connected. So I apologize, BMO. I need to like put my arm around you, I think, a little bit. But with the press of this button, this should sing. Connected. So first off, can just connect directly from the button interface. Don't require any poking and prodding around on here. The same button actually also will start a print. If I choose something in here, I think I need to refresh it because I am not seeing the.
I'm really curious how you programmed this. So,
yeah,
having gotten into Octopi recently, how did you get it to work with those buttons and to have the eyes and face on it?
Buttons, as in the buttons that control the printer.
Yes. How did you get those buttons to interact with Octopi?
So I got lucky on this one. By the way, if the printer is loud and you can hear it, I can totally turn it back off again. It's not a big deal.
I can't hear it at all.
Not hear a thing.
Perfect. So I got lucky on this one because there is actually a plugin that you can download for Octoprint called Enclosure plugin. Now, this doesn't sound like it would have anything to do with buttons, but the actual functionality of the plugin basically allows you to create inputs and outputs via the GPIO ports on the Raspberry Pi. So what I was able to do, communication error, go away, is I was able to basically set, because obviously I've got this all wired up through my custom PCB. So I already know like what GPIO pins the buttons are. I was able to basically set those up as inputs. And then it has some kind of custom pre-built functionality for like, it's got a couple of like button toggles, which are really nice. So like the red button is basically connect to the printer, start a print, or cancel a print. It all does the same thing. The green button is connect to the printer, pause a print, and resume a print. And then the triangle, actually, I had to get a little clever with it. There is a pre-baked change filament command, but changing filament actually, it's not as simple as it sounds like it should be. Different printers actually do this differently, but the most, I guess, common, easy, I'm not quite sure what is the correct word here, way to do a filament change is with the M600 G code. Not all printers recognize this. I want to be clear.
I've noticed that on my own 3D printer. I think I had to use M50 or something instead.
It doesn't work for everyone. Yeah. In which case, then maybe what's pre-built into this, into the enclosure plugin, might work for you. It didn't work for me. My printer was not happy. It didn't like it. So I ended up having to create then a custom output, which was basically just when the blue triangle, whatever GPIO port that is, I can't remember off the top of my head, when that gets triggered, do M600. And it works like a charm. It actually absolutely does exactly what I need it to do. So between these three buttons and the fact that I can just pull up prints from BMO's face, like I can pretty much do almost all 3D printer functionality from here. I do upload G-code files from my computer, like, because obviously you can pull up the Octoprint server remotely, just via a browser. And so I will upload the files from my computer, but then everything else I can just control from here, which is really nice because when you have a print failing and you desperately need to cancel it, running to your computer, wherever it is, to cancel it because there's no way to cancel it here is a huge pain. And in many ways was kind of some of the inspiration behind creating BMOctoprint in the first place, because I just really wanted to be able to control my 3D printer a bit better from here, because Octoprint overrides a lot of the like the internal controls. Some 3D printers you can still cancel from the printer, but like others you can't.
Yeah, mine I can't. Yeah. Mine I can't. I mean, for the audience who's watching now and in the future, like Octo, we cannot recommend. I'm sure we all three of us cannot recommend enough Octoprint.
Oh, it changed my life.
It really changed the game for me when I started using it a few months ago with my Elegoo Neptune 3, which is not officially documented as something that works with it, but it works fine. But
as you say, it works with most things.
But as you say, once you have it on, the printer doesn't really know what's going on. The printer screen doesn't do much. I mean, it's not aware of what's going on, basically. Although,
it's kind of being walked all over by Octoprint, so it's just kind of like, You want me to do what now?
Yeah, exactly. But Octoprint is better than software. Plus, it makes the printer wireless, which it otherwise is not. So, that it is really cool. So, are the eyes sort of just a screensaver? Is that what that is?
So, we've got obviously an idle animation, which is just honestly, this was one of the probably the most important things to me to get right, because it's what kind of gives BMOctoprint personality. Like, it's not just a static image, but it is a looping, I think it's 10 or 15-second animation, which all of these animations are custom made for this project by a wonderful animator named Thomas Muehling. He's just the best, and he created, it was perfect. It was one of those things that I commissioned him to do this. He sent me the results, and I was like, I have literally no changes. It's perfect. I love it so much. So yeah, so BMO blinks and looks around and stuff like that. But you're right. It's a screensaver, which is why, again, if I just tap the screen, it goes away. I didn't want it to interfere with the functionality, because again, that was the reason for this Octoprint server. We don't want the BMO bit to kind of overwrite the Octoprint bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. It's got to be functional.
Yeah. So I use X screensaver to run it, which is relatively straightforward. There's a little bit of code that you have to write a shell script to basically make it refer to a video instead of just playing one of the sample pieces. Yeah. But that all works nicely. Now, the bit that I'm actually quite proud of is the fact that if I were to play a video now, trigger one of the videos.
I don't say things I don't mean.
It's my favorite.
You look very smart and very handsome today.
This is literally my favorite. I will just trigger this animation every day because I feel like I need someone to tell me that I look very handsome every day with a smile. It's just the best. It's so full of joy. But if you will notice, it went right into the screensaver. It doesn't go back to the Octoprint screen. Yeah. If you trigger an animation, if you trigger BMO to talk to you, it will seamlessly go into the screensaver from the animation. And that was a tricky thing. And Les actually definitely helped me kind of puzzle through this one a little bit, because I had issues getting videos to play correctly, and we ended out basically hitting an actual wall without an actual solution. Like, we never did figure out why things weren't working. I just found a workaround, which that's fine. That counts, right? A workaround counts.
It works. End product.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that is really awesome. I want to ask for the folks who have been following this project about the design process for BMO's body.
So I spent probably more time on the body than anything else, because it was incredibly important to me that anyone be able to make BMO. Like, I didn't. Sometimes it's cool to make something that is only a one-time thing. You make it, nobody else makes it, and that's it. And I mean, this is something I know well as an artist. Most art is a one-time thing. You don't make it to be remade. But I love the open source community, and I love the idea of empowering people to make things themselves and not just watch me make things. So it was really, really important to me that the case and everything to go around this be not too difficult to make. Like, obviously, there is a barrier to entry. Obviously, you have to have a 3D printer for one, but there's having a 3D printer and it being, a bit of a thing. Like, I'm not going to lie, this is a lot of filament, and it's about 2 to 3 days worth of printing. So It's certainly not a novice 3D printing project. However, I took great care in making sure, for example, minimal supports. incredibly minimal supports. There's a few pieces that need it, but I think maybe of the 18 to 20 different pieces involved in this, like 2 of them require supports, and then like 2 of them it's kind of optional. So like that's one way in which I've made it easier. All of the case pieces actually print with the outer part on the bed. So if you have a smooth bed, you'll get a shiny BMO without having to do any post-processing. I wanted that to be simple and straightforward, as little post-processing as possible. But the biggest one that was also the hardest like design challenge to overcome was making this non-permanent. BMO can be completely disassembled and reassembled as many times as you want. In fact, I've done it. I have disassembled BMO completely so that I could document assembling BMO. And I can honestly say that with the exception of a few things like the letters can be a little tricky to get out, but technically if you don't glue them in place, which I didn't, you can pry them out. Everything screws together, and the screw placements in places that I tried to make it so it's not too difficult to get a grip with your hand, because again, accessibility, if somebody doesn't have great grip strength or good range of motion, I didn't want this to be super challenging in terms of just, you know, putting it together. So some of the things are a little fiddly because it's a little hard to avoid it completely. But for the most part, the BMO case it's fully disassemblable. It's not the most insane thing in the world to put together. And I've actually just finally finished and released the full build instructions on instructables.com. So anyone who wants to make their own BMOctoprint can follow the instructions literally from start to finish. I documented in great detail. And I genuinely think that anyone who has basic electronics knowledge, basic 3D printing knowledge, and basic Linux knowledge can make this. I don't think you need to be an advanced user to do it. And that was really, really important to me. So
that's amazing. Cool. What did you use to do the design to make sure that you had exactly the right space for the pie and for all the buttons and to make everything fit so perfectly?
Fusion 360. I am a Fusion 360 user, and I did a lot of measuring and a lot of testing. Like that was the other thing. Like I did so many test prints. If you actually I think it's in the second video of the 3 video series. 4? 3. I can do fingers. I can do finger maths. The second video, I actually show the test printing that I did, and it was I filled basically a small plastic tub with test prints because again, I wanted this all to fit, and it does. Like if you use the same components I used, which should all be easily available, obviously. Things are tricky now with shortages and whatnot, so things might be out of stock. But like it's the official Raspberry Pi 7-inch touchscreen. It's a Raspberry Pi 4. The only thing that is unique is the PCB, which you can purchase. Basically, you can purchase from PCBWay, or if you're watching this right now and you're actually watching it before the 18th, you can basically enter to win one because I'm going to be giving 5 of them away, but you only have until the 18th to enter. You have to leave a comment on my latest video with the hashtag BMOctoprint to enter, and that's it. It's pretty simple. So if you want to win one, that's basically the best way to do it. But if you miss out, maybe you watch this in a month, you can still purchase them. Or you don't even really need one. You could technically just use a permaboard and just make sure it's about the right size and shape. It's just a rectangle. I mean, I've got the PCBs here. You can kind of see that they're just, rectangle shape. And as long as you get the buttons, in the right place, which you can do with a permaboard, then you'll be fine. This just makes it all easier, and it looks really nice, and it just mounts so nicely inside. You just solder some buttons and resistors on it and add some wires and you're on your way. So cool. This I'm also very proud of because it's my first ever PCB design. So I'm still very much patting myself on the back for that one because I'd never done that before.
It looks fantastic. It really does.
Great job.
Aesthetics matter to me. I know I said it in my video, but like I am an artist. Like at my core, that's what I am. That's what my background's in. And regardless of everything else, I am an artist, but not like an elite, like nose in the air artist, but an artist. So I like things that look good and fit good and work together well. So that sort of thing is like this all kind of happened the way I wanted it to, including silly things like posable limbs. You know, that was a little detail I just really wanted to have. In fact, if I bring BMO forward a little bit. Boop.
Oh.
Oh no, come on. You can.
Cool.
You can
what did you print those in?
This is so the legs are being a little tricky, but technically they should be able to bend. They might be they might need a little bit of help, a little bit of coercing. They are printed in Recreuse 82A Filaflex TPU. In fact, I'm actually gonna. Excuse me, sweetie. I need your leg. Thank you. Again, it all comes apart. And you can see there is a little bit of wire, a little bit of armature wire, basically.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, see, it's a little, this could arguably use a little bit more testing and or maybe stronger wire actually would probably help. But you can kind of see I've gotten it to bend. And there's a little leg joint down here. Oh, yeah, see, they just kind of come off. Let's lay you back. Let's put your legs back on. And they just kind of slot on like so, or that. Boop. Yeah. So the prints are getting the thickness of the print just right so that it would actually bend with the wire was definitely tricky. And like I said, I feel like I need a slightly stronger wire. I don't know that it's necessarily the fault of the print, because there's obviously print limitations, but you still get a little leg bendy action, which is just kind of adorable. And again, the arms bend really nicely, and there's magnets in the hands as well. One of these days I will model a little case for my Pi camera. I've actually got two of them. I've got the tiny original one, and then I've got the mega one, the HD one. And I definitely want to 3D print a little case for it, and then put a magnet on it, and then BMO can hold it.
Oh, that's
cool.
Precious.
That is so cool.
There's a lot of room for upgrades, actually. I definitely built this with the intention of either myself adding upgrades later or other people perhaps adding upgrades. Like there's a slot in the back where you could feed through the ribbon cable for a Pi camera without having to open up the back of the case. Like it'll just slot through. So
very nice.
I try to think of these things.
Very nice. It is difficult to mount. Like I found it's difficult to mount the Raspberry Pi that's a really nice, like the BMO is a really great like case. In my case, I couldn't find, like I'm still trying to find the ideal case for my printer. So like I have one that was sort of attached to the side of one of my printers.
Mm-hmm.
But
historically, I've always just done little covers, little simple cases, just that keeps the Pi kind of safe. Yeah. But nothing quite like this. This is admittedly was a bit of a wild idea that kind of built on itself and then actually got made, as opposed to just staying a wild idea. So sometimes these things just stay wild ideas, and sometimes they actually come to life.
That's just amazing. It's one of the most impressive designs I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely.
For a 3D printed model. So that is so awesome. If a person cannot get a Raspberry Pi these days, Les, you've been checking out a new Raspberry Pi alternative.
Oh.
Do you think it would be up to the job?
More than definitely, yes. So in recent while, I've been messing around with the alternatives. So as we know, Raspberry Pis now are very rare. You have to go to like RPi locator to even have a chance of finding one. But I've been looking at alternatives. So the latest one on my desk is a LattePanda 3 Delta. Now this is a big SBC. No word of a lie. I'm going to go to over camera just quickly to show you. There's LattePanda. There is a Pi 4. It's big.
Gosh.
So it's a big board. And there's the Cadis Vim 4 as well. So you can fit 2 SBCs on top of this one. But that's not an issue because this board is an x86 SBC. So it's got an Intel Celeron processor, N5105, I do believe, Jasper Lake. In fact, go to this page, I can show you all the specs and tell you all about it. So yeah, Intel 11th Gen CPU, 2.9 gig, 4 cores, 4 threads, and it's fast. So we'll go past all these specs right now. They're there just to sell the product to us. We're going to do our own tests and show you how fast it is for real. It's got a really large cooling area. So you've got a big heatsink fan. That big black plastic shell covers the entire CPU and the RAM to keep it all cool. And RAM-wise, 8 gig of RAM, LP DDR4, Wi-Fi 6, USB 3.2. So it's nice and quick. We can plug in screens. So you can plug in a touch screen if you want. You can plug in a 4K screen via USB-C. Or you can plug in another massive screen if you want. It can do 3 displays at once. We've got HDMI, we've got USB-C, and we've got a dedicated port on the back for a touchscreen as well. You've got auto power on. So it has something really cool inside it as well. So I'm going to scroll down just a bit faster. There we go. Control and sense physical world. What makes this different to a Raspberry Pi is it isn't directly accessing a GPIO. With the Pi, you've got GPIO plugged in, ready to go. Load up some Python and away. With the LattePanda 3 Delta, we've got an Arduino Leonardo built into the board. So we've got a microcontroller and a microprocessor all working as one. It appears as a COM device in Windows, COM 3 or 5 in general. It appears in Linux as well. So I've tested this board with Windows 10, 11, and Ubuntu 22.04.1, the latest update. All works flawlessly. You actually get a better experience with Windows than you do Linux in general. So YouTube playback is a lot faster. So 4K video, minimum drop frames. In Ubuntu, I get a few drop frames, but that's usually a driver issue. But I can mess around with the Arduino on this. So I can send Arduino code straight to the Arduino Leonardo on here, control the GPIO, make things light up, make things make noises, LCD screens, that sort of thing. I can also do it with Python. So rather than accessing the pins directly with Python, I use something called PyFirmata or Firmata on Arduino, which is a firmware that allows Python code to talk to the Arduino and send commands and say, right, turn this pin on, turn this pin off, do this with this pin, do that with that pin. And if I just go back to my overhead shot, you can see there's the GPIO pins on the side here. They're not all GPIO pins for the Arduino. So if I just tilt it that way, let's get it right around in shot. There you go. Been doing this for 99 episodes. We're going to get it right one day. There's your Arduino header. So you've got 2 headers, so a dual header there. And it breaks out what pins do what. So if they're digital pin, analog pin, PWM, if they're I2C, you also got pins for the BIOS, in-circuit chip programming, ICSP, I think that is. I need to remember that. You've got basic ones for the actual OS as well. So OS level stuff. So we can do USB, power, RS-232, so serial, I2C. And it's a very capable little board. Now, this capability comes at a cost. Let's be honest here. $279 for the board. So it's a lot of money compared to a Raspberry Pi, but Raspberry Pi 4s, 8 gig models can go for about $120 to $140 at the moment. So, and that's if you can get them. Cadis Vim 4 as well. I just go back to overhead. There we go. That there again is about $239. So for $40 more, you're getting Cool. A lot more board. Admittedly, octa-core, quad-core. So that's octa-core ARM, that's quad-core Intel. So it all depends on what you really need.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of money. But I think it's worth it. So far in my tests, it seems like it's a really good board for general purpose computing. So if you need to do something with an Arduino, say robotics, you've got the Arduino built into the board. You've also got the CPU horsepower for computer vision, should you need it. And compatible with loads of sensors. And you've got everything you can think of underneath. So I've only shown you the top of this. No, I've not shown you the underneath yet. Let's flip it over. Because as well as Wi-Fi, so Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2, we've got two M.2 slots. We've got one here, which is the M key, so NVMe. So in there, I've got a 256 gig SSD right now. But I can also plug in, if I wanted to, a SATA hard drive or some sort of 5 or 4G module. So I can fit a lot of hard drives in here in a very small amount of space. So I've got a very capable desktop computer in an SBC form factor, which is really interesting, I think. So yeah, there's the specifications at the end for everyone who really wants to know specifications. But really, this is just an Intel board with lots of RAM, onboard 64 gig storage, ability to put in NVMe and SATA hard drives, a built-in Arduino, as many screens as you can throw at it, and it's pretty nippy. Your Windows 10 and 11 experience is pretty good. Admittedly, you're not going to be sat playing the latest Steam game on it, but you can play older games, anything up to like the mid-2000s, 2010, probably at a limit. You could play quite comfortably. I played a few games with Deus Ex on it, just for testing, obviously, and it was fine.
I'm actually really impressed by that.
It's a lovely little board.
It's basically a computer just missing. It feels like it can match a surprising number of commercially available computers and laptops and stuff like that.
It probably could. I mean, the question is what I would question whether this is definitely not a drop-in replacement for a Pi, because you can't use it with a hat. It wouldn't fit in the same spaces. You probably use a lot more power.
Huge.
Yeah.
So
power usage, it's 15 watts. So it takes 15 volts at about an amp. If you're just using it's just general purpose stuff. So 15 watts is okay. A Pi, that's 5 volts at round about 800 milliamp. So what's that, about 4 watts, something like that? So yeah, it has got a higher power overhead, but it's still not grotesque. It's still not your big. I mean, my PC I'm on right now is 5600X AMD Ryzen with a 3060 Ti. That's sucking a load of power right now. Do I need all this power right now? Well, right now for the show, yeah. So I can do all the video stuff.
Maybe later.
But if I'm just writing, I don't really need it. I can just use, a 15-watt computer.
I very much agree with Avram that it doesn't feel exactly like a exact replacement for a Pi, but it's really interesting.
Yeah,
I also love the logo.
Yeah, I mean, there's always room for more of that stuff. So speaking of room for more, I want to thank Allie so much for coming on our show today. It's always such an honor and a privilege to have them on. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm really glad that I got to kind of come full circle in this, since I was on a while ago to talk about this project in a lot more of its infancy state, and now it's done, and it's nice to be able to be like,
it's amazing.
Just over a year.
What's next?
Over a year.
Wow, that long? What's next? What's next for you? What's your next big project?
Oh my gosh, that's actually a really, really good question, because I've got a couple of things. I just got back from Dragon Con, which is an amazing mega nerd convention, and I took Terrico with me to carry around as I cosplayed as Princess Zelda, and everyone loved Terrico, and it very much got me thinking again, but what if I made Terrico properly robotic? Obviously I would have to redo certain aspects. I keep looking up because He's sat up on my shelf. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at him. But I feel like I could probably keep the body more or less intact and just stuff it with electronics and create new legs and stuff like that. But I definitely found myself as I was on my way home frantically Googling and doing research on basically kind of like the different types of controls you get for articulation and multi-joint pieces. Basically tentacles, like even like let's be real, that's basically the search term here is articulated animatronic tentacles, which gets you some weird results in some cases. But I very much came away from that convention being like, gosh, I really want Terracotta Move. I really want Terracotta Move.
Cool.
That is awesome. We can't wait to see where that goes. As
it's gonna
always,
be a big jump for me, so
can't wait. As always, we will be here next week again at 7 p.m. UK to 2 p.m. Eastern for our 100th ever show.
I was gonna say next week's a special one, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we have our guest confirmed yet?
Not us yet.
Okay, so we hope to have a very special guest. Well, we will have a very special guest. We hope to have a very particular special guest, but if not, we'll have a different special guest. So with that, I will let everybody go, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.